welcome to the Easton.Online podcast. I'm your host, Elliot Marshall. And what this podcast is here to do, it's here to help you gain strategies and tactics and tools that are going to help you grow in your martial arts business. If you have a martial arts school, a gym, this is one of my passions, is how we spread the message of how to really grow culture and business and some ways that we do it the best with our people, with our staff, with our clients. So I hope you enjoy. Give a listen. You're first. You are first, Larry.
I'm a first?
You're first.
In what sense?
You are the first non-Easton employee to come on the Easton.Online podcast.
Holy cow. Am I going to get a job offer at the end of this?
Are you going to get a job offer at the end of it? I don't know if you want a job offer.
Well, that feels like an honor at any rate. Thank you.
Man, so I am here with Larry Dressler. And Larry set this all in motion for us. We were kind of going, we had meetings all the time, right? We didn't really accomplish much. We had a culture. I would say we had a good culture. We loved each other for sure.
Yes.
Without a doubt. But like any real family, we were having some struggles. I would say mostly with each other, like mostly with like a power dynamic for Mike. Because like we were trying to put Mike in charge, but not real, and like that shift. And then along came Larry.
Seems like there should be music that comes in at this moment. Can we put
Jordan
that
will do that.
Dramatic violins?
Yeah, Jordan's on that.
Then Larry came in, and then the violins.
Right.
Cue violins.
Okay.
Terrific.
And I remember Mike was really mad at first. Do you remember this? He called you, right?
Yeah.
Because you sat down with me and Amal, but he was the one with the issues, and he was the one that called you. He's like, "Fuck you, Larry! Like, no, man, no. I gotta." And you were like, in this nice, calm way that you do everything. So tell everyone, man. Like, what was it like? What is it that you do?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think in a lot of ways, you guys are my sweet spot, because you are as an organization, as a company, this amazing potential. Like, you have amazing individuals. You have these high performance athletes, amazing teachers, and superb entrepreneurs, like all wrapped up into one in your team. So there's so much potential there to be unleashed that I saw in talking with Mike and you and Amal. And you do this world-class job of forming individuals and helping them meet their potential through martial arts that you teach. And so, like, for me, it was all there. And the stuff that had to change were the kind of, three things had to change, really. One was you guys had to be strategically aligned. You had to have a shared sense of where you want to take this amazing venture of yours. The second thing was you had to take the DNA of your culture that was already there, amazing DNA of your culture, your core values, and articulate it. And just like together, articulate it and say, are we really committed to that together? Together, are we committed to that? That becomes your team's compass. Like, you could actually have this now shared definition of what is integrity for us and stand by that. Before, it was up to everyone's interpretation. We sort of have this agreement about like what we stand for, but everyone sort of goes out and does it their own way.
Right.
But together, you came together and really said, this is what we stand for together.
Once you put a ring on it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Once you put a ring on it.
Yeah. And the third thing is the thing that you're talking about, which is just like, how do we move from being great individual athletes? Like, when you're on the mat, only one person leaves the winner, generally. Like, that's the goal, right?
Right.
One person leaves as the winner. When you're on a management team, you have to try to find common ground wins. And that's a different set of muscles. And so I think part of what I was trying to bring to the table for you guys was, how do we move from the mindset of win the argument, win the decision, be right, to how do I get the best thinking in the room, in the conversation, and then come out where we're all winning, where the company is winning. And that involved some tools that I taught you guys, and you guys quickly got good at.
I think we wanted it. I know
yeah.
I think we wanted it. I can only speak really for me personally. I know I wanted it because it was what I was trying to shift in my life as well. right? Of this fighter who everyone listened to because I could beat the fuck out of them. You know?
That's why I listen to you.
Of course. Of course. You know, to okay, but I knew where that took me to. That took me to a place that was not very healthy for me and I didn't really like.
Right.
And to this place where I'm trying. I have a friend, Big Alex, and he says, "Can you have a more skillful conversation?" Mm-hmm. And that's what we like to call it now.
Yeah.
And I think you were the catalyst for us to have much better and more skillful conversations. And for me, it's in my whole life. It's not even just in the business. I want to talk about what you said as the core values, because what an amazing thing you did with us. Explain core values to everyone.
Yeah. So, we live our lives and we run our businesses based on a lot of beliefs and principles, and a lot of them are important, but a core value is a value for which you're willing to lose money for or end a relationship for. That's the difference. It becomes this elevated guiding principle in your business, in your organization, and it is a shared value. It's one that we all have to look at and say, yeah, we're on that page. That is our conviction. We stand on that in the toughest times. So you may have employees who are really high performing at doing their job and may be great teacher, but on a consistent basis, they may violate something that you've declared as important, even publicly, but you're willing to live with, okay, because they're a really great teacher, but they misuse their power, let's say. And I know that for Easton, right use of power is a core value. It's one that you articulated. And so now you're left with this integrity gap. Okay, once you've said, as a team, as a leadership team, this is what we stand on as a core value, the right and responsible use of power. You can no longer turn your back on a really great high-performing teacher that on the side misuses his or her power on a regular basis. And it forces you as leaders to have to find a way to have a really hard conversation with that teacher. Okay, that puts you back into integrity, not just individually, but as an organization. So that's an example of what a core value is. And I think that especially as a fast-growing company, if you fail to articulate, if you fail to actually get clear together about what those core values are, there are all kinds of ways in which things can go sideways culturally. As you bring in new people really quickly, and there's no grounding, there's no compass to say, yeah, we expect you to do a good job on your job description, but we also expect you to act in ways that are consistent with these principles.
There's no true north.
There's no true north. Yeah.
I stole that from Jordan.
Yeah.
That's his term.
And this really defines like what integrity is for you individually and for your company. And I think when we work together as your team, I had you go out and interview people and ask them about what they experience when your company is at its best. What do they experience as sort of what is guiding those behaviors? What guides you when you have to make the hardest of decisions? So we looked at who you were when you're at your best and then backtracked into what does that mean in terms of what we really stand for when we're at our best.
I remember that exercise. You had us go talk to students.
Right. And other staff.
And staff. That was really hard for me because people don't always tell me the truth.
Right.
Like how do you like when you had us do that, like people might tell Sachi the truth, right? Because you got to meet Sachi.
Yeah.
And I think most people will tell Ian the truth and Valor the truth. But me, Amal, and Mike, Amal's God.
Right.
Right. And I'm Jesus. And Mike's Paul, and we're super intense.
Yeah,
the two of us.
Yeah.
So, how do you like I struggled with that. So, somebody who, how do you have the leader or the leaders, like the three of us, bring ourselves down from the God complex? Because I for sure, I hope everyone got the joke there. I'm not fucking Jesus, right? But how do you bring that down so that when I can talk to somebody and say, hey man, where have you seen me at my best and where have you seen me at my worst, kind of like those kind of exercises that they'll actually tell you. Yeah.
Being the boss is really hard. And I'm not, and I don't think you ever really get to like 100% approachability of someone at a lower level. So in a lot of ways you rely on your people to be the conduit for you getting good information. That said, I do think, The stereotype of a leader is that we are declarative, confident, and clear about what we believe. And we strut that talk as entrepreneurs or as world-class athletes. That's what you deliver on.
God, I did that for a
confidence,
long time.
And that becomes part of the identity. And we believe that becomes part of our success.
Yeah.
And so we keep relying on that. And one of the, actually, I have to say and congratulate you that one of the shifts I've seen in you and I've heard about from others is you haven't given up your clarity, your confidence, your swagger, but there is this other part that you've cultivated, which is humility and curiosity about what other people believe, and a willingness to not move toward defend when someone confronts with bad news or feedback, to be able to breathe and say, from where they sit, I have to listen to their perspective because they sit in a different part of the organization. They might hold a perspective, a way of seeing things, or even me, that's a blind spot for me because I sit in a different place. And I'm isolated. Man,
we just had this podcast, right, Jordan? Like Peter sat down. We have this employee. He's a GM of a school. And I was like, hey, you want to do it? And look, man, I don't know how you feel, but everyone that I asked to do this is nervous. And everyone that I asked to do my Gospel of Fire podcast, if they know me, they're nervous. And so we have to get through this, right? Like this nervousness, because for most people, it's their first podcast. It's their first yada yada, and they're like, whoa. And for me, I don't know, we're at like 10 Easton.Onlines now. I had this other podcast before. I have 70 episodes of the Gospel of Fire, so I'm in, and this is kind of me, who I am.
Right.
So I asked Peter to do it, and he's like, yeah, but I want to put some thoughts together. And I'm like, okay, great. Just share them with me so that I know. And then he's like, okay, I'm ready, And I'm like, well, can I get the thoughts? And he's like, no, I'll read them to you. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, so we sit down and he's like, I don't want to talk to the fire marshal because we have this history. Like we started in a bar together. That's where we met.
Yeah.
Like working in a bar.
Yeah.
And then I became his coach where he was just like looking up to me. And like, so from my perspective, it's one thing. And from his perspective, it's this whole other thing. And we've had some trials and tribulations with each other along the way through. Like we even had to fire Peter at one point because he was such an asshole from the Boulder School, but now he's a GM. So we've both moved so much. But like what you were just saying, like you have to step back and look at it from the other person's perspective possibly and give space for them to be their truth.
Yeah, I mean, your example of Peter is great because I think what will never change is that your opinion matters to Peter a lot. That won't change.
I think he said that, didn't he?
Yeah. What can change is Peter's perception of how much his opinion matters to you. And you can make that through the way you lead really important, a priority to let him know to go first. 3 things you do is like you learn to ask on a regular basis a person like Peter for feedback. How am I doing? How are things going around here? Okay. And become skillful at proactively and frequently asking for feedback. The second thing is receiving feedback skillfully, that when a Peter does come to you, rather than listening with your, do I agree with this? Do I not agree with this? Am I evaluating his opinion? Is his ideas viable, not viable? Just really listening, receiving, and saying he has an important perspective here. Whether I agree at this moment as I'm listening to it or not, there's raw material in there. There's some gems in there that I really need to just keep asking questions about. So receptivity is the second skill. Ask, receive skillfully. And then when it comes time for you to give feedback, to give that in a way that doesn't hammer someone, but that actually says, hey, here's my perspective. Here's what I'm seeing. What's going on from your perspective? Like I'm seeing you doing this and I'm seeing a consequence to you doing this that's not so great maybe. But tell me what's going on from your perspective here. Making it into a conversation rather than a cross-examination.
That takes me time.
Yes, it does.
I can't respond right away.
Yeah.
Like that's what I'm not where you are yet, like where I am. So I've gotten better at the asking and receiving.
Good.
I cannot give my feedback right away.
Yeah.
I have to say, okay, thank you. give me a couple days.
That's not a bad thing.
Okay.
Like that you actually can create some space for you to process what you've heard is a fine thing. I mean, unless the building's on fire, in which you probably want to give an answer fast.
Right, sure. But I'm great in trauma situations or in high pressure. Let's go all day. But I don't have the calmness yet to not be declarative.
Yeah. And, speed is not the important thing always. Even though in our fast-moving society and the message in businesses, act fast, act now, first to market, everything is about speed. I actually think that's become misinterpreted, and that many of us have come to believe that like we have to do everything fast, including respond to our people quickly. 24/7 email, immediate response. But there are times when I think it's a legitimate and actually the strongest leadership move you can make is to say, give me a few days to think about what you've said. I want to consider it seriously. If you're saying that to me, I'm feeling hurt. I'm like, Elliot's really considering what I've got to say. And he must respect me enough to take the time to ponder over what I've shared with him. That tells me, as the person that just shared my ideas with you, this guy's listening.
He's not blowing me off.
He's not blowing me off.
Actually, this happened with me and Peter because Ian gave everyone an exercise, all the jiu-jitsu instructors. Ask 5 people that you really care about their opinion where they've seen you at your best. And he sent me the email, and I said, I don't want to respond because I want to think about where I've seen you at your best. And he said, he came back to me and said, man, I really appreciate that because everyone else gave me a pretty quick response within a day or two. And some of them were just total bullshit. Like they were just like, okay, get this out of my email.
Right.
It took me like 2 weeks.
Yeah. And I'm guessing the quality of your feedback was higher than the immediate stuff he got, and that he took it seriously because he knew you'd really considered the question.
Yeah, so that's such an interesting thing, and I guess I credit you for a lot of this because I don't think I would have done that before. Like I like problem, phone call now.
Yeah.
Question, answer now. Like this is just, and like you said, you always get a result. I think you said this earlier. You get a result, and to you, it might even seem like a good one. But is it the best one? Was it the most skillful one? One?
I mean, if you're unilateral in your leadership, you get a result.
Yeah.
Which is compliance. Okay, boss.
Yeah.
You've pinned them to the mat, and they will comply.
Right.
Right. And in the short term, that might be exactly what you wanted to happen. In the long term, that doesn't build commitment in people. It doesn't build buy-in. It doesn't build trust. And it probably doesn't even get you to hear their voices, which may contribute to a better decision in the past. So the unilateral approach to leadership, which, is the one person wins, and one person leaves the loser, is a great way to take things on the mat, but not necessarily to run an organization. The alternative to unilateralism is mutual learning, is being a leader that says, in every conversation, what I'm really trying to create is that I walk away from the conversation smarter, and so does the other person.
And I would 100% on all of that. But I think sometimes, even for a place for people to start, like school owners like this that are listening to this podcast, is they want their phone to stop ringing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? They want their phone. They don't want their employee calling them with every single question.
Right.
And I think a lot of times that happens because said employee is very scared to do anything because you're going to jump down their throat if said thing goes not how
bingo
the boss wants it. Right? So even if you're right now currently in this place of, well, I still like the boss and your ego's still all wrapped up in it, but you want some freedom.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You want some freedom. You want, and that's just a place for it to move.
Right.
For you to start getting it. You
Right.
know? But I think it's really hard, man, for people to buy into this, especially us on the mat.
Yeah.
I know, because not only are we the boss, but we also have this black belt around our waist.
Yeah.
So it's two things.
Right.
Right? Like I'm your teacher and I'm your boss. So
Right.
everyone that's working for in our industry, it's not like I hired you.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't meet Larry and say, okay, you can answer the phones really well, or you're a good salesperson and yada, yada. I took you from this thing where you were nothing and I've made you something.
Right.
And now on top of that, I'm your boss.
Yeah.
So how do you go through that? Like where's like, man, that's like, I would say quadruply hard. It's like everybody knows one kid is hard. 2 kids is not 1 + 1.
Right. But that approach to leading a school, that is, I'm your daddy,
Right. Yeah.
That's kind of like the model,
Right.
because it's a power model. And I think that, like, if you're going to grow a school, if you really are committed to growing a school, you have to grow people too. You have to grow them in ways that actually help them learn, rather than giving them the answer and then having come the call the next time for the very next answer. To take the time on that one call and say, well, tell me how you think about this. Before I tell you how I would make that decision, tell me how you'd make that call. And then start a coaching conversation. You know how to coach.
Right.
People who work in schools know how to coach. Right. And so, like, here's how I'd make that move. Okay, how would you make that move to play to your strengths? And so the very next time that decision comes along, I want you to make that on your own, because we've kind of gone through, how I'm wired now when it comes to that kind of decision. Why don't you try next time and start with the lower stakes decisions, obviously.
Sure.
And then move on, figure out where you feel comfortable giving more and more discretion to that employee that has been with you for a long time, that you do trust, but you need to start managing that person differently in order not to be their daddy and them the kid anymore.
That's such a good way to put it, because that's how it is a lot, right?
It is.
Especially in our industry, like you're not only the owner, but you are kind of like the dad. And I see it like that. I'm not saying I don't.
Right.
Like every single one we try not to use this word, but like in this sense, yes, every single one of my students, which is everyone, they are under my care in some way.
Yeah.
Because, and I truly, truly see it that way. And that helps me deal with everyone better.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then I have to move off of that as well and give them, I want them all to leave me.
Yeah.
Like any child should, right?
That's right. And I think, like, there's a hard conversation maybe for people in your position to have with someone who's been your student and is an employee also, which is, being my student has always meant being deferent to me. Taking my word for it. You're in this role now where being the best way you can respect me now is when you feel that you have a different opinion than I do, to express that. Okay. So there's an ask there that you have to make as a leader, which is, I want to hear your perspective, especially when you differ. With me. And people like on your team, I've seen people on your team sit across the table from you and say, Elliot, I have a different take on this. I don't see it exactly the same way as you do.
Right.
Now, the way that you respond that very first time someone who's doing that for the first time is challenging you, if you defend or tell them why they're wrong, they'll never do it again. The very first time you respond to someone after you've made the invitation has to be, wow, I haven't thought about it that way. Let me take a moment and consider that. It's a really different way of thinking. You and I think really differently about this. You're not agreeing with them. You're just saying, you've just brought a different perspective to the table. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Now we can talk about the merits of your idea versus mine.
Right.
But thank you for taking the risk, because you care about this school, to differ with me. Your response is going to make all the difference in the world, whether they grow up into being that great staff person who's willing to put their ideas on the table, or stays in student mode and just defers and sits quietly at the table.
Man, I'm going to give another story here where I think this all helped us. We did a sensitivity training. 50% of it was amazing.
Yeah.
50% of it was terrible.
Yeah.
Like awful. Like
now I really want to hear about this.
Yeah. The guy, I don't know, Jordan, you were there for it, right? Uh-huh. He first started off the conversation by apologizing for being a white male, which, I understood what he was doing, but this dude did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Like, he's done nothing wrong. Like, stop it.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And then they went into this idea of microaggressions, where the example that they gave, you ready? Hi, Elliot. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Elliot.
Where are you from?
I'm from Boulder, Colorado.
Oh, nice. That was a microaggression. This was their example.
Yeah, don't ever do that again. I really felt the aggression.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
What happened just now, according to your teacher?
I'm assuming that by the way you look and how you are portraying yourself, that there's no way you could be from here.
Ah, okay.
And I mean, this was just left field for me because that's how I start every conversation.
Yeah.
Hey, man, I'm not from here. Where are you from? Right? Like,
right. So your basic way of interacting is wrong according to this teaching.
Right.
Yeah.
Hi, how are you? Where are you from?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And this has gotten me really far in the world. Like I've opened up a lot of and don't be so fucking sensitive a little too. Right? Like someone's just asking you where you're from. You can gladly say Boulder. I'm not assuming you're not from here.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
So, and what we do with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, we microaggress all day long. We're beating each other up.
I would call that macroaggression.
Yeah, I would too. Right? We
mega aggression.
Mega, right? Like this is what we do. And my whole thing with our schools is I want to make people anti-fragile.
Yeah.
Right? Like you are not fragile.
Yes.
So, but the other part about like the sex and the employees and all of that was amazing. And I didn't handle it. I didn't set this thing up.
Yeah.
So, and neither did Mike. And Mike wasn't happy with it. And Amal wasn't happy with it. But we had to go in and have a conversation in a way that wasn't like, hey, you fucked that up.
Right. Yeah.
And we had to get people in the room from a bunch of different perspectives.
Yeah.
And I think it went really well. We came to this common ground.
Yeah.
You know?
You were willing to like spend the first half of the session being incredibly uncomfortable.
Well, I mean, I had to. I was in the session.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what was coming.
Yeah.
Like, I found all this out in the session. And then after the session, I was like, okay, this has to change. Mm-hmm. What's the best way that we can get change out of this?
Yeah. 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 I think when you're in the middle of something that's not going well,
it's hard.
It's really hard. And especially when there are other people who've set it up and want this to happen. And when you're not sure actually what's going to happen next, the good part might be coming. It might not be coming.
Right.
And your ability to not take action. Like, I think that there's this impulse in the martial arts to take action, right?
Oh, yeah.
To make the move, the right move and the first move and be the aggressor, to initiate.
But you got to be ahead.
Yeah.
Because if you get behind, now you have you said it perfectly. Like, so to expand on that analogy, if you get behind, then you can get tired. And if you can get tired, now you got to use this declarative side of you to get out of it a lot of times.
Yeah.
And we all know how that can go.
Yeah. And so like the moments of discomfort, I think the impulse is to initiate, to step in, to intervene. And sometimes, like when you just allow the space, the silence, the stillness, for things to play out a little bit and work your way through that discomfort, some good stuff can happen. Some good stuff can emerge from that, from the bad and uncomfortable stuff. And it sounds like that's kind of what you did. You chose not to take action, not to intervene, not to say, hold on, this is bullshit. People just need to toughen up.
Right. But
to sort of allow for the workshop to play out and for some of the good stuff to happen. And then you could take action afterwards and say, let's talk about if we were to do this again, we would probably have some different messages here.
Right. And we had to because we did it per school. So this was just the first one at Boulder.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay.
That's good news.
Yeah, we can't give that everywhere else.
Right.
But I think, again, that conversation came back to all of these skills that we learned.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I want to stay on the same topic a little bit, and then I want to go back to something else you said, because I just watched it too today. So sometimes, and I'm in this conversation with my friend Alex, who is a Buddhist, and he's all about my perspective, your perspective, and the most skillful ways to have conversations. And I made a post the other day. Hold on, I'm gonna get it.
Okay.
And come on, stop pulling up my emails. And we have been discussing said post. So it's a picture of some football coaches like getting in it with some of their players. And it says, what champions consider coaching is what the entitled consider abuse. Parents, if your son is going to be great, he will have to take some ass chewings along the way. Mm-hmm. Get ready. Mm. And I do agree with this.
Yeah.
Right. You know?
Yeah.
So where do we balance? It's like sometimes in the heat of battle, when it's on,
Yeah.
like, so where does, I mean, some of my best times, like I'll say it, like I can remember I was a white belt and one of Amal's teachers, maybe I was a blue belt, I don't know. But very early on in my stage, one of Amal's teachers came and he's from Brazil. So, yeah, the opposite of everything we're talking about. And he says in Portuguese, man, I'm all that fat kid over there is going to be your best student. Because I was a little chunkier at the time. And I was like, okay, I'm never going to be fat again.
Yeah.
Like no one's ever going to call me fat again.
Yeah.
And then I went on to be a champion.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And that had a profound effect on me. But he kind of got in my ass.
Right.
You know, and told me like, hey, man, you're not living up to, like, the way I took it is you're not living up to the standard of what a champion could really be.
Yeah.
So where does that space play, or does it never play?
No, it plays.
Okay.
So I believe that part of leadership is creating an optimal level of discomfort in the system, in people and in the system, which is in order to create resilience and learning. Because I think when everyone's in their comfort zone, nothing interesting's happening, right? There's no need to change. There's no need to learn. There's no need to innovate. We're all comfortable. And so leadership is about creating ideal levels of discomfort among your employees in the system, which means pointing out the gap between what is and what could be, right? And what's possible.
Yeah.
Okay. And constantly focusing on that creative tension between what is and what could be. That's the way you motivate people. It's the way you inspire change. It's the way you create resilience in people. In terms of how you show up, first you have to understand what are my motives? Is my motive to evoke change in someone? Okay. In other words, to create enough discomfort to have them move to another place, or is my motive to cause suffering and pain? What's my intention here? What's my mindset here? And I think too often what happens is we get leaders who are bullies who say, I'm really motivating change in my people, but actually their intention really is to punish. And so I think, first of all, the leader has to look inward and ask the question honestly of themselves, am I just unloading my own internal anger or pain or anxiety on other people in ways that I self-justify as my own style, unique style of motivation, okay? Or am I really trying to intentionally and deliberately create a level of discomfort in this person? That's one thing, looking inside. The other thing is looking at the person across from you and asking yourself, who is that person individually? What is their level of readiness to hear what I'm going to say and how I'm going to say it? Each person's different. Another kid who heard the same thing from the teacher as you heard might have left the dojo forever. So there's a question to me about understanding who's sitting across from you and what's going to motivate that kid or that employee, that staff member, that student, and understanding their level of resilience or fragility and what could inspire them.
You bring up I mean, my kids.
Okay.
My kids, like...
They wouldn't have responded to that kind of coaching.
No, one will, one won't.
Yeah.
Like Kanan, my oldest, is this softy.
Yeah.
He is soft.
Right.
As far as like his emotional insights, very tough, you know, but
different things motivate him than your other son.
Yeah, disappointment. If I say, man, you really upset me right here, and like I'm just, like he will crumble,
melt.
Like if somebody ever hit him in a form of discipline, I would beat the fuck out of them.
Yeah.
Simon, I get it.
Gets back up.
I get it, you know? Like, I get it. He's just a different kid.
Right.
Like, he'll get mad, but then he'll, like, people like, I don't want to get hit again.
Right.
But, you know, like, it won't be this, it won't be that.
Devastating,
Yeah. Where Kanan, if you hit him, that might be the end of your life that day, because, one, this child does not need that, and he's a child.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, I think, some adults don't need that.
I mean, for me, like there are always two truths. As a coach, I'm always dealing with these two truths as well. As a coach, I have to, when I'm being tough and direct with my clients, there's one piece of me that is, people are able. I believe that people are able to hear the difficult things and to deal with those things. The other truth is you never know how fragile someone is in any given moment and what they're dealing with in their lives. And so I learned a couple of weeks ago that from a client of mine, that the client checked into a behavioral health clinic because they tried to hurt themselves. And
you had no clue.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And it made me think, okay, like I can be pretty tough and direct with my clients. And I had to like ask myself, like, what is my tone in any given moment? And how do I come to those conversations? And in any moment, you know, do I come with a level of aggressiveness or even frustration or anger that could tap into something? And so it's super important, I think, that we don't treat everybody as fragile, but we hold these two truths. People are generally able to hear this stuff and they're resilient. And also you never know on any given day where someone is. And to see them as people and not as objects that we need to change. As long as we're seeing their humanity while we're being provocative and creating discomfort, I think we show up in a different way with a different tone.
It's somewhere in the middle all the time.
Yeah. And depends on the person.
Depends on the person. And,
Yeah.
and it might even move for the person depending on where they might be.
Yeah. But I always ask myself, am I being motivated in the moment by anger, revenge, anxiety? And if that's the case, I pause because I'm not going to act. I'm not going to intervene at that moment if those are my core emotions and motivations. It's
Right.
not going to go well for me or the other person.
It's going to be terrible.
Yeah.
So yeah, such a great point. Because we just like to do it. This is how I do it.
Yeah.
This is, this is how I motivate people. And yeah, it's a tough spot. It's a really tough spot. I have these two kids that I work with, older kids. They're 20.
Right.
And one's male, one's female. They date.
Yeah.
And I've learned that the male, Nick, I have to be very different with him. Mm-hmm. Because he sees me as I don't care. It doesn't matter how I see our relationship all the time.
Right.
It's how he sees our relationship. And it can, and he sees me as his dad and I'm not his dad. Mm-hmm. But if I criticize, he's like, fuck you, watch this, I'll show you. Mm-hmm. And that's always his response.
Yeah.
And I have to learn, and this is hard for me because I don't see our relationship like this.
Right.
And I'm still fucking it up, don't worry. But we love each other so much that there's space for both of us to blow it.
Yeah.
Where I have to move on it and be like, damn it, this is how he sees me. I can't be getting in his ass all the time.
Right.
His big brother might be able to.
Yeah.
His uncle might be able to.
Yeah.
Like Jordan over here, and Mike and Ian and all these other people, they might be able to talk to him in a certain way and joke with him in a certain way, but I for sure can't.
Yeah, and that changes. I think we have to always ask ourselves as teachers, what is my student needing from me right now? Especially with young people at this moment in their development, what does this person need from me right now? And at one point it may have been that tough love, strict, criticizing, guiding. And at another point, it may be a lot of affirmation, a lot of mirroring back, like, here's the good I see in you. Here's where you're on track right now. Keep that up. And it changes, I think, in relationships. It changes, man,
because this is exactly where it was. He was this 14-year-old kid that was a total fuck up.
Yeah.
And we saved his life. But the way we saved his life was, hey, you're graduating.
Yeah.
Hey, don't you come in here. You're going to show me your report card. Don't you come in here with less than a C.
Right.
I'm not asking you to get straight A's.
Yeah. Exactly.
I'm not asking that from you.
Exactly.
But don't you come in here with less than a C, and I'm going to be picking you up at school.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're going to show me, and we're going to talk, and we're going to this, and but now he's older, and I don't want to be his dad anymore.
Yeah.
But it's still there.
Yeah.
Right? It's still there, but he's 20 now. He's not 14.
Yeah.
So he needs something different from me, and I struggle with this.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's a constant thing.
Yep. Hey, you mentioned something earlier that I wondered whether it would be interested in us getting into a little bit, which was how much meetings sucked at Easton and what we changed about that.
Yeah, we couldn't do it.
Yeah. And I think I'm asking because I think it might be something that a lot of schools, when they get their folks together, struggle with.
Yeah.
And I have some ideas around that are really basic, but I think can like really help. And you'll recognize when I like share what they are. One is I call it goals, roles, rules, and tools. Okay, so goals, like we don't step into a room unless we know why we're meeting. What are we trying to accomplish in this meeting? What decisions are we trying to make? But what is our purpose? And we walk into that meeting having done the preparation we need to accomplish that goal. Okay, so, but clear in advance, why are we getting together? Why are we taking
have the meeting.
All this human time and energy in a room together? Those are dollars. Those are school dollars that could be out there making money on the mat. So if we are taking ourselves into a meeting room and off the mat, why are we doing that? Being clear about that. That's the goals piece. The roles piece is like, what's our job? What's each of our job in this meeting?
You say roles?
Roles.
Okay.
So like, do I have a specific job in this meeting? Am I leading the meeting? Am I supposed to have some expertise that I'm bringing into the meeting? Was I supposed to do a research? Did I have an assignment coming into this meeting? What are our roles? And those have to be really clear coming in. And if you're the owner, but you're not leading the meeting, your job is to
I was just about to ask you, so sometimes that's me shut the fuck up.
Exactly. And then the rules, you remember we had a flip chart with like 8 agreements on them.
Changed our life, Leonard.
Yeah.
This is our lives.
When we get together as a team, this is how we show up. These are our rules. These are our shared agreements about who we are when we're working together. Okay.
Can I talk about that for a sec?
Yeah,
I
please.
think the best thing that you did with the rules, is you let us come up with the rules.
You generated them.
You didn't tell us what the rules were.
Yeah, there was no playbook here.
No.
You created the playbook.
We created the rules.
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah.
And now we're able to take those rules to our community and then add sometimes in certain meetings and things like that. But that was was so strategic, I guess, in the fact that you knew we needed this and you knew we needed this in place, but you didn't tell us what they were going to be. And sometimes we do that as leaders so much.
If I would have imposed my best ideas about rules on you, no one would have bought them. They'd be, okay, like that's Larry's thing. We'll behave while we're in his meetings, but then we'll be on our own when, and act ourselves, into whatever we act ourselves into.
Right.
But because you came up with them, you own them, you took them away. It was your work. And that's a big part of leadership too, is that people don't invest in what they don't create.
Yeah, we took so much pride in those rules.
Yeah.
We take so much pride, man, in our rules and our core values.
What are 1 or 2 rules? This is not a test.
Yeah.
But what are like 1 or 2 rules about like how you guys meet that have made the most difference, that have changed the dynamic?
1, don't interrupt.
Uh-huh.
Right? Like let the other person talk.
Yeah.
And 2, don't take things personally.
Yeah. I remember those rules. And those are huge because we spend a ton of time in meetings, right? Interrupting each other and defending.
Right. I wonder if Sachi thinks the same. Those are the 2 rules that I remember because I'm an interrupter and I take things personally. So I wonder like Sachi, who's not an interrupter.
Yeah.
And I don't know if God, she's dealing with us. How could she take anything personally?
One thing that I would say in the beginning of our work, she was the person that spoke the less.
Right.
Okay, the only female on your team.
Right.
And I would say the last meeting I had with you all, she was very vocal. She weighed in on a lot of different things. And one of those rules was actively invite others into the conversation and speak up honestly. Speak your truth.
Speak your truth.
And so...
And I don't remember them because I always speak my truth.
Right. That's not when you're working on.
No.
But it may be that those are ones that she took to heart and was really pressing herself on to model.
To make happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry, go back to...
So that's rules. So is goals, roles, rules, and tools. So tools like... Okay, how do we articulate shared values? Or how do we document all the brilliance that we just came up with? Or how do we confront each other in ways that don't escalate conflict, but allow us to disagree or give each other tough feedback? Those are tools or methods that we brought into your team that allowed you to do the collaboration thing more skillfully. So there's a skills piece that I call tools that we built that kind of muscle on your team.
Right.
And for me, that's how you can get to better meetings is by cultivating those 4 kind of dimensions of high performance teamwork.
I mean, Larry, Mike can even have meetings with me in a mall now.
Wow. That's an accomplishment.
Yeah, and where he leads it and just takes us through things.
So he's talking to the 2 owners.
Yeah.
And he can be the leader.
And he's the boss.
Because you know your roles in that meeting. You're clear.
It's so clear.
Yeah. And you add value by letting Mike lead and just you guys being smart owners in the room while he creates a structure for that conversation.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And I want to say the other thing before there's one more thing I do want to talk about.
Please.
But on this topic of people and roles and stuff like that, and just like the culture of people, Mike and I, like we are strong nosed, right? We are bulls, and what we realized, and I think this came. Ian's the one who gave us the suggestion, but it came from you, people. Was we were only ever talking about problems. And therefore, his problem with whatever, my problem with whatever. And then we were starting to get contentious, you know?
Yeah.
And Ian was like, man, can you guys just hang out? Can you guys just call each other to see how you're doing and like not talk about work? And like, I mean, sure, like if it goes to work, it can go to work. But it goes back to like the people thing.
Yeah.
Where like, so even me and Mike me and Mike are brothers, right? When we talk about core values, I don't think that I could ever lose them. I don't know what they could do.
Yeah.
Because one of my core values is them.
Right.
Almost like your kids, right? You're always going to love your kids no matter what. Like he might murder somebody, I'll love him.
Yeah.
I might not like him. So, and we've started that again. Go ahead, sorry.
Well, I think what you're describing though is when we're pressed up against the wall, when we're under pressure, our default is that we can begin to see others, even others that we love, as either obstacles, adversaries, or vehicles to get done the shit that we want to get done as job descriptions,
right?
Essentially. And when we turn them into that, we turn them into objects and they're no longer people. So we feel self-justified in not speaking to them in a tone that's useful. And it's so I would like encourage your listeners to notice the moments in which they're beginning to see their people, their partners, the people they love even, as adversaries or as vehicles or as obstacles. And in that moment, you're making whatever they need or what they're saying less important than what you need or what you're saying. And take a breath and remember their needs are as legitimate as yours. Their perspectives are as legitimate as yours.
He says this shit so much better than me, right? He's pretty good.
Your stories, though, I think bring out the reality of like what it looks like.
Right.
And I'm just putting the sort of framework on top of it and saying, here's what's going on there.
You're putting the broad stroke that everyone can take to their place.
Yeah.
And go, okay, there's this like little, there's an instant, which is kind of what I do.
Yeah.
That's how I make conversation. But you're taking it, be like, look, here's what it is.
Yeah. The personal becomes the universal.
The universal.
Yeah.
And that's the key,
Yeah.
So the last thing that I did want to talk about was when you were talking about your best instructor, your best sales guy, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because I just, again, Alex sent it to me he sent it to me late last night, but it's Gary V. And I love Gary V.
Yeah.
And it was like, you might have to fire your best salesperson.
Yeah.
And then he went on because they don't make the people connection. They are not part of the who you are,
Right.
Of your company.
Yeah.
And they bring you the most money.
Right.
But they will also be the cancer that kills you.
They will take you down eventually. Yeah. It will take you down, and it doesn't mean the answer is to fire them. It can mean, it must mean.
He said might. He said you don't have to. You might have to.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
It must be confronted. The behavior must be confronted that's not working and that's so counter to what your core values are. Because if you don't, not only does it hurt the company, but it sort of makes your credibility laughable. That you as a leader lose credibility because everybody knows that person is tolerated in your eyes. And you must not really believe in that thing that we've said is an important core value, or why would that person why would you continue to tolerate that behavior? So the core values become diluted and sort of the laughing stock. And as a leader, your authority and credibility become diluted because everyone knows that that's what you tolerate.
It just falls apart.
You can.
Yeah.
It can. Yeah. Yeah. I'm noticing that you haven't plugged my book, Standing in the Fire, and I just want to say, in the same way that Al Gore invented the internet, I really invented fire. And so the Gospel of Fire, I'm not saying it's a complete ripoff of my title, but let's just say, Internet Fire, Larry Dressler.
Larry Dressler,
and then there was Elliot Marshall.
I'll love it. I'll love it. I have never seen that side of Larry before, ever, Jordan. I loved it. I'm speechless. I guess I just want to end with a little personal talk.
Yeah.
How did you get into all of this? Like, where did this come from for you?
It's a great question. And I have to say, when I was in 5th grade, that's how far it goes back. Okay. Like when I see my work as bringing people together to have the very best conversations, I was bused across the railroad tracks because the laws changed in California, and we were trying to integrate schools at the time. So I was bused from my ethnically diverse middle-class neighborhood to a really tough gang-dominated environment, essentially a farm workers ghetto, literally 5 miles from where I lived. I got off the bus the first day. I immediately got pushed up against the bus by 6 really tough-looking 6th graders who I remember as having facial hair and tattoos, right? It was like, that's my memory of the trauma of like being pushed. And they told me what they were going to do to me for walking onto their turf. This little white kid from across the tracks. And the only thing I could think to say in that moment was, can we talk about this first? And I like to think about that as my first attempt at a facilitative intervention with a group. And it did not work out well for me that day.
Okay.
Or the next day, or the next day. And literally between 5th grade and 12th grade, going to a school where I had to be hyper attuned to violence and power, I learned to create unlikely alliances with powerful people, to observe and be able to read people's emotional states, to see crowd behavior, and when it became threatening to me. And by the time I got to UCLA as a sociology major and had these erudite professors saying, here's my theory of group dynamics and behavior, I was like, dude, I had to invent that theory in the 7th grade. What else have you got?
Right.
Like, I know this stuff in my bones. And I think in a lot of ways, my career has been a redo of that first day of 5th grade. It's been me sort of attempting to like see that group of kids, not as bad or evil, but as like frightened, anxious, confused, which are often like what the rooms I walk into and do this work.
I got to stop you because I didn't know that. As this little white kid who I'm taking it, these people were not white.
That's right. Yeah, in that neighborhood. Right. Yeah.
How did you not become a racist?
That's a great question.
Because I think most people do. Over
those years, also my closest friends were the kids of farm workers, the kids of first-generation immigrants. So in addition to being beaten up on a regular basis by kids that look like that, I was also being protected and nurtured and loved by kids who look like that. So
you were able to take the look like that out of it.
Yeah, my conclusion was like, and I got beaten up by white kids too in a violent school district. And so my conclusion was like, make good friends who are good human beings, who stick with me. And turns out there's not a lot to do with the color of their skin or the language they speak. There's something deeper there that I've got to try to figure out and how to discover in assessing who becomes my friend.
Man, it's people again. It's not it's not the look of people.
Right. Yeah.
It's the actual person.
Yeah. And I just went back to my 40th high school reunion and had this big bear of a guy who I remember as a kid who was now skinny and recovering from a disease. But he was a bear of a football player at the time, Mexican-American. And he actually reminded me, do you remember that time, Larry, when you were surrounded by 5 guys And I walked up to the group and got between you and them and said, "Not today. This is my friend. You're not taking this guy down." And he said, did you know that I was afraid too that day? And I said, "No, but this is my chance to buy you a drink and to say thank you."
Yeah.
Because that happened a lot for me. As much as I, had to figure out a way to go down fast because there was no way for me to fight that many guys and take the beating, just as many times people showed up in my defense, and the opportunity 40 years later to thank somebody for doing that for me was amazing.
So I guess just my final question, maybe, how do you deal with someone like me? Because I am kind of like, at first glance, for sure, like intense like that.
Yeah.
And it could go very badly for you. Like I'm not talking about like my skin color or anything like that, right?
Right.
Just my demeanor.
Yeah.
Like, have you just learned really well of which one's the safe one and which one's not the safe one? Or like, because like I could see how this work with us could have been very hard for you.
Yeah.
Because of me and Mike.
I could see how you would think that.
Okay.
And there's a lot of testosterone in that room.
Oh, yeah.
When we're together, let me put it that way. And there's never a moment in which I feel unsafe. I see beyond, the world-class athlete bodies and the aggressive enthusiasm there. There's never been a moment that I felt unsafe. I see you guys as deeply intelligent, huge hearts, as big as your muscles are. One of those muscles is your heart, and you've got huge hearts for caring. I see that too. So for whatever reason, like you've let me see you beyond like who you are as just high testosterone leaders and athletes. And I love working with you guys. There's never been a moment in which that it's triggered some sort of trauma in me. And I've done my work too.
Right.
But yeah, that's just for whatever reason maybe with a different group of guys, that would have been the case.
Right. Because I would say we're genuine friends now.
And absolutely. And I actually feel like in a room where you guys are doing something that's not working, I can say, "Elliot, sit down and shut the fuck up."
You did.
In a way
you did.
where we can both laugh because I can pump up my chest, at 180 pounds, skinny, non-muscular dude. And we can both laugh and say, "Yeah, Dressler's getting
you did.
threatening with this world champion, and that's fun for me. But it's also a way for us to use humor to say, that's not going to happen. But wow, Elliot just sat down and shut up.
Down and shut the fuck up.
And I'm like, that's pretty cool.
But I think you did it in such a skillful way. And you also always gave us time.
Right.
You'd always, all right, guys, take 5 minutes, do your thing.
Yeah.
And you kind of stayed out of it.
Totally.
Like you just let us bullshit and talk shit and, So it was amazing, man. And I greatly appreciate it. I could, as much as I appreciate it on my business's end and like everything that we've been able to do as a group since then, I think I appreciate it more on a personal end. Because I just do life a little better post Larry Dressler.
Wow. That's I'm going to take that in. That's
I appreciate it, man. Like I like my life got better since then. I deal with situations better. I deal with everything better. And I couldn't always make more money. Everybody can.
Right.
Like it never touches me in that way.
Yeah.
I'll figure out how to feed my kids and all of that. But what will that do to me?
Yeah.
And you have moved me. So I appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
It's fun to have this conversation with you. Thanks for inviting me.
It's great, guys. Easton.Online. Larry, if they ever need you, tell them where anybody listening to this could find you.
So the name of my company is Blue Wing Consulting, and they can go online and find the contact information on our website. And I write a blog 3-4 times a month. And if they want to learn more about some of the stuff we've been talking about, that's a good place to learn about those ideas.
Sounds great. Jordan, that's the first time I had to do that, right? Because everyone else, their business was Easton.
Oh, yeah.
I always forgot, right?
No, that's why I'm good at plugging your book.
Right.
You should plug your book.
Yeah, plug the book. What is the book again?
Oh, so the book is called Standing in the Fire,
Okay.
Leading High Heat Meetings with Clarity, Calm, and Courage. And it's about sort of like in those moments when everybody else in the room is on fire in the worst kind of way, is heated and things are getting conflictual. How does the leader maintain a kind of calm, courage, and clarity internally to be able to show up in that moment and turn that conflict into productive, creative raw material?
I appreciate it. I always do it on the Gospel of Fire because I always have a guest. Like,
Right.
it's like that's a personal brand only.
Yeah.
So they always have something like, where can people find you? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But this is the first time that, it wasn't an Easton thing.
You
so.
did it. You did it well.
All right. Man, I appreciate it. You're the man, bro. So
Thanks.
have a good one, man. Drive
Thanks.
safe in this snowy weather.
Yeah. I've got my reindeer and sled out there. So
All right. Sounds good.